So this is designed to provide the museum audience with opportunities to discuss the role of arts in the Philippine society. So last October, we had our first talk series, and our guests were Eileen Legazpi Ramirez, Ricky Francisco, and Cheats Ramirez. So this November, the talk series will tackle perspectives on art and world history, church art, and the relationship to the church and the state. So we've invited two distinguished faculty who will be talking and leading the discussion for the afternoon. So without much further ado, I would like to turn over the microphone to our moderator for the day, Mr. Emmanuel Galibay, to formally introduce our speakers.
Sisimulan na po natin yung ating talakayan. Magkakaroon po tayo ng dalawang tagapagpresenta. Si Arnold, he likes to be called Arnold kasi bata pa po siya. And si Roland, would you like to be called Roland as well?
Roland, yes.
Okay.
Ako lang, Roland.
Roland Ruben. Ruben actually is also the first name of the professor from Adventist University. He's over there. Siya po ang nag-examine ng estudyante mo na lang. So we will be covering the topic of perspectives on art and world history. The role that art played in upholding the power and authority of the church and state. I hope that's clear enough. And to start the discussions, sino po ba mong gusto niyo mauna? Si Arnold na? Or nagbigyan muna natin yung seniority. Now, who is Arnold Azulin? He is a research fellow of the University of the Philippines Center for Integrative Development Studies, a creative writer, journalist, and anthropologist. He finished his Bachelor of Philosophy in UST and Master of Studies in Anthropology and History at UP. He is also a poet and an essayist. His works reflect deep knowledge and appreciation of the issues and problems surrounding the ethnic and folkloric dimensions of the nation's cultural heritage. Ang bigat pakinggan, ano? Roland Ruben, on the other hand, is also a professor. He's a member of the faculty of De La Salle University in Dasmariñas. He is an associate professor in Social Sciences Department of De La Salle University in Dasmariñas. He is also the director of the Center for Innovative Learning Programs in the university. He finished his bachelor's degree in philosophy at the University of San Carlos in Cebu City and Master of Studies in Philosophical Research in De La Salle University, Manila. I know you also did studies in French, right?
Yes, sir.
So he did studies abroad. But in other words, he has a longer list of credentials, but he chooses to shorten everything. So hindi na ho natin patatagalin pa. Let's start with Arnold. Thank you.
I would like to begin by recalling to you my experience of joining a walkabout tour in Intramuros. I'm not going to tell you the name anymore because I really had to call his attention to some of these wild comments, like there are no churches, no buildings in this area when the Spaniards arrived, he said, because there are no stones. There are no stones. Sabi ko, bakit? Sandali lang. Saan galing mga stones ngayon sa Intramuros kung hindi galing dito? Actually, in Bulacan, there are many quarrying areas doon na pinagkunan ng mga adobe. Actually, I was excited by his statement that there are no churches, because I can agree with that. There were no churches at the time of the advent of this pandemic, because the churches were not necessary for the life ways of people at the time. There is a rendition, an artistic rendition of the life way of people there at the time when people start making small boats, because it showed that the boats are very important in the life of the people. They are sea rovers, they are sea nomads, and the earliest writings about the lifestyle of our forefathers in that period would show that at any drop of this is an exaggeration, but then I might as well go for it. At any drop at the point of the needle or whatever, they are out there at sea. That's how they are. And if there is any epidemic in barangay, they would go all out and look for another place. There is not much art to do or artifact to look into at the time, because the most important thing they had to do is to travel from one island to another. And so the art that they did, the art that they accomplished was usually portable. Things that can be carried and brought to the boat at any time. The little objects they made, likhas or larawanes, were the ones that were gathered, easy to put there in a pile, and that's what the priest did. One day, he gathered all of these things from the people, the likhas, and the most, what we can say is that the most complicated thing that would be part of this heritage of art would be the manunggol jar. The manunggol jar would be the most complicated, the most artistic thing to be part of this heritage. One of the best specimens found in Abusan, Butuan area that would show the link of that area with the cultural legacy of Indochina, especially that part occupied then by Champa. Golden Tara is very famous, very famous. This is the most pronounced artifact or artwork that was done in Agusan or in that area, in the coastal area. But this would be part of the Hindu Buddhist heritage that entered the Philippines before the Islam and Christianity entered our shores. Next, this would be a good rendition of the balangay or found in Butuan. Next. Now, these plates are not, definitely are not made in the Philippines by our forefathers. They are trade wares. Let's go to the next. Earlier, we have shown you the amount of, let's say, artifacts that were gathered by a priest, by a friar, in front of the church, and how they burn all of these things, and this would be the type of art and artifacts that are available at the time. By the way, let me clarify that I am using the word art, A-R-T, as not only a product like this, but also process and also performance. That would be what would comprise our understanding of art. Why do I make performance art as part of art in our topic is because the colonization of the Philippines, of Islas Filipinas, was done much more by rituals, by performance, by processions, by even burial. The acts of conversions were done more by very fanatic acts. In the book of Resil Mujares, he described that the priests had to take so much pain trying to convince them not to be dancing in that sexy manner, frenetic manner, because it was not supposed to be part of the ritual. In another island, very close to Cebu, Bantayan Island, during Friday, the Good Friday, the fishermen in Bantayan are supposed to commemorate the dying of Christ and burying on Friday by having a procession that honors a figure that looks like a oten. What do you call that oten? Yung titi niya. Diba? Yeah. And then I asked, yeah, there is a name for the lingam. Lingam in Hindu Buddhist, right? Lingam. Okay. So, the fishermen would undertake their own procession commemorating the potency of the lingam, because the lingam is the spirit of fertility, the uten. That's why I asked my friends from Cebu, what for? That is to ensure that for the next year the the uh, the sea will be yielding fish. Okay. In other words, what I'm saying here is that the Cebu people in Bantayan Island still commemorates the Hindu Buddhist ritual to respect, to worship the lingam, the male principle of potency, so that there will be fertility in all the seas. What I am trying to drive at here is that our Good Friday celebration can be entwined with the Hindu Buddhist fertility, and why can it be so that they can be wedded together, the Hindu Buddhist and the native or the more prominent and eminent practice at the time can be explained by one prior's account, but this was in what do you call this, in Cordillera. So why is it that in Cordillera, a while ago I was talking about Cebu, having entwined ideologies and religion. This time, in Cordillera, this book, by Friar Angel Perez, says that the process of making the Igorots believe or try to be one with the beliefs and practices of the Christians can be found here. I would like to read it carefully because it's a very important thing, and to me it's just this time that I am reading it again. It says, the Reverend Father Rufino Redondo says, and taking advantage of their beliefs of the Igorot, for they adore four gods called Dumawig, Bugan, Kabigat, and Bangan, I made it known to them that we too, meaning the Christians, pay homage to God, one in three, and that Bugan, married to Dumawig, is no other than the most holy Virgin Mary, spouse of the Holy Ghost, and mother of the eternal Word. I concluded, says Rufino Redondo, I concluded my discourse by exhorting them to obedience and submission to the crown of Spain. So it's that using parallels, matching types of beliefs, and then making them stand together or entwine together, and then finally make an exclamation, and we do it for the crown of Spain. See? And then it will be very difficult to disagree, to get out of the ritual when you believe partly there, and then it says, and we do that for the crown of Spain. Then that is very viable because the crown of Spain is the royal patron of the friars' missionary work at that time.
In the beginning, in the beginning, God created. So we are introduced to a God who is the creator. A God who is imaginative. A God who intended creation to be both functional and beautiful. And God created us in His image and likeness. So that, what does that make us? It also makes us creators. The church used the arts. It is not to control people, but to make people aware of the greatness and goodness of God. So the purpose of the arts was, it's like God reaching out to people. That's why my title is Making the Invisible Visible. Because nobody has seen God. But through the arts, we're able to experience God's love, beauty, truth, and goodness. However, in today's times, there is a separation between the arts and the church. It's like if you focus on the arts, it's mundane, and the church is sacred. So you have to separate them. Nowadays, I haven't seen churches that are built that is beautiful. When I say beautiful, look at the churches during the medieval period, the Baroque church. Now we don't do that anymore. Where is the art? Now we live in a pragmatic world. Parang practical na lang tayo ngayon. When we talk about the arts, it's a luxury na. Parang we don't have time for the arts. So what should we do? So the challenge is, so I offer 4. I hope we can do this. First is, there is no escaping the arts. The arts is all around us. The music, the dances, the arts create the imaginative symbolic world in which we live and move. We are constantly surrounded by images, music, and stories. So we need to reflect critically and faithfully on the artistic media that profoundly shape the consciousness of our culture. Tanongin natin sarili natin, paano kinikwento ng iTunes or Netflix ang mga bagay-bagay? Social media, paano na? Yung architecture ng buildings natin, how does it look? And how does the diction of advertising stunt our capacity to speak kindly and truthfully to one another? If we focus only on the ideas, and not what the senses, and not with our senses, then we will be tone deaf. Kulang. Because that's what the church teaches us. You just focus on and the ideas, the concepts. We have our senses. Second is, all elements of corporate worship organize words and actions in some sort of artistic form. So the question is, when we do things, do we do our best? Or we will just simply just do it? Kasi, kung ano lang kailangan nila. Be practical. Aanin mo yung sobra. Yun na yung ngayon pragmatic. So, ang tanong, yung mga kanta ba natin, our songs, our dances, our songs, do we consider them beautiful, incisive, and provocative? Do they ask questions? Or they are just, the fad or the average thing? Third is, the arts teach discipline. Ito yung tinuturo ng art. Discipline. And finally, because we are made in the image of God the Creator, we are destined to be creators of images and stories. Art is us. It's flesh and bones. I remember one movie, is it I, Robot? You have seen I, Robot, right? When were we able to say that the robot is already human? What instance was that? When he was able to feel, to dream, was able to fear, nandun na. Pero yung concrete na pagpapakita is when he was able to draw. Was able to express his fears, his dreams. Kaya siya human. And that is a human being. We cannot detach art from society, from us, from humanity. How should we use art? So art is, imagine a cup. So an art is an instrument. So an art is like a cup that will carry the water of life to the thirsty. So as human beings, this is our work. Kung kahit saan pang architecture ka man, or painter ka, sculptor ka, you're a singer, you're a dancer, that art, yung masterpiece mo is like a cup that will feed the thirsty. It's not the water itself, it's the vessel. What we are doing today is we are just picking up water with our bare hands. When we don't use art, we are gathering water with our bare hands. Can you imagine when you gather water with your bare hands, it will spill over. You will not be able to give what you really want to give. Use art. Now, the mission of the church is tell the world of God's love. It's the only thing. Love is the answer. Kahit pa anong pelikula yan, anong kwento yan, anong kanta yan, isa lang mensahe niyan. Love. And the ultimate love is love. God is love. And then we have to teach people love and the love of God. God loves us and we have to love God, and that fulfills our life. And God is also beauty. God is beauty itself. God is the personified beauty. The origin of this importance of the arts, the origin of the importance of the arts in our faith is the mystery of the incarnation. Yeah. So making invisible visible. This is God's love in a concrete way. When God became man. Incarnation, the second person, the divine word, by which all the world was created, has become man. God invisible has become visible. That's how He loves us. So the only begotten Son of God, He has revealed it and made God manifest. Now remember in the Gospels, when Jesus said to Philip, "Who sees me sees the Father." And that is the justification of the representation of all supernatural of God in human figures. So for all these reasons that we have just heard, will it stop there in the sharing of the arts, of creating? It will not stop there. So the invisible has become visible, but it should bring us back to the invisible, where all glory lies. We should not keep it for ourselves. All glory and praise should be to God. Now, as my ending, as a conclusion, I'd like to share this letter of Pope John Paul II to the artists, to all of us. The divine artist passes on to you a spark of his own surpassing wisdom, calling you to share in his creative power. You, artists, have a special relationship to beauty. Beauty is the vocation bestowed on you by the Creator in the gift of artistic talent. You who perceive in yourselves this kind of divine spark, which is the artistic vocation as poet, writer, sculptor, architect, actor, musician, director, you feel the obligation not to waste this talent but to develop it, to put it at the service of your neighbor and of humanity as a whole. Society needs you. The world in which we live needs beauty in order not to sink into despair. Beauty, like truth, brings joy to the human heart. Beauty is an invitation to savor life and to dream of the future. Beauty is the key to the mystery and a call to transcendence. Beauty to save the world. With this letter, I turn to you, artists of the world, artists of Cavite, of the Philippines, of the theater, music, the plastic arts, and the most recent technologies in the field of communication. I remind each of you that you are invited to use your creative intuition to enter into the heart of the mystery of the incarnate God, and at the same time into the mystery of man. And Jesus Christ not only reveals God, but reveals man to himself. In becoming man, the Son of God has introduced into human history all the wealth of the true and the good. Beauty himself has already saved the world. All believers are called to bear witness to this, but it is up to you, men and women who have given your lives to art, to declare with all the wealth of your ingenuity that in Christ the world is redeemed. The human person is redeemed. The whole humanity is redeemed. The whole of creation is redeemed. The threshold of the third millennium, my hope for all of you artists is that you will have an especially intense experience of creative inspiration. May the beauty which you pass on to generations still to come be such that it will steer them to wonder, to truth, to goodness, and to beauty.
So dahil wala po tayong parang naka-announce na reactor, I will have to assume that role. So there will be a reactor. So that's medyo mahirap pong gawain nun, considering that I was not given a copy of the lectures for today. So let's just begin with Dr. Asbrin's lecture. He emphasized, of course, the pre-colonial practices that aren't around anymore, and some which still persist. No? In spite of our yung having been converted into Christianity or in general Roman Catholicism. And he cited the prevalence mostly in terms of form, the influence by the Hindus, Hindu Buddhist influences. No? So for those of you who are familiar with Islamic art, at least Philippine Islamic art, not that yung marami actually doon are more of Hindu and Buddhist. And those were associated with the different Bangsamoro tribes in Mindanao. No? So Islamic art basically is not based on images. It's iconoclastic. When you say iconoclastic, ayaw po nila ng any tawag nito, representation, especially of the divine and the prophet, na nagmumukha silang actual persons. No? Yung gano'n. So, it's usually, yung when you say Islamic art, usually just a series of geometric patterns. Mga ganon. So, what you have in Mindanao is different. And one of the things I noted was that Dr. Asurin said that the friars burned the pre-colonial artifacts that they found. No? I think it should be noted that when the Spaniards came, during the colonization, kapapanalo lang po nila laban sa mga mga Moors, no? Or the Arab conquerors at the time. So medyo mainit pa rin yung galit nila sa mga Muslim, no? But to just cite parang a sidelight on the surge of Islamic power in Europe and in Asia, no? It was mostly welcome. No? So the early years of Islamic conquest of most of Asia and North Africa was not really met with so much resistance, and in fact, most Christians were allowed to continue with the religion, which is a curious thing because most of these countries right now, no, to name a few, Morocco, Egypt, Turkey, Syria, Libya, most of these are Islamic already. No? But these people used to be Christians. They were not forced into conversion. So we should take note of that now. At any rate, siguro malaki lang talaga yung galit ng mga Kastila sa mga, I think it's also a matter of pride that they were conquered by the Arabs. No? Kaya matindi pa rin yung galit nila. And one thing is curious, no? The persistence of pre-colonial practices, in spite of our embrace of the Roman Catholic religion. Bakit nagpe-persist pa rin? No? And at some point, I brought up this assertion that in reality, Filipinos do not really take their religion seriously. Very few Filipino would kill and die for their beliefs. Did you know that? And are you also aware of people or Filipinos who convert into Islam, no? When they go to Muslim countries, when they work, no? Pag nagtatrabaho sila sa OFWs. And then, pagbalik nila dito, would revert back to their religion. So it's a conversion of convenience, di ba? So if you're really that pious to your faith, why would you do that? Di ba? So that's one reason. And then there was another incident, this time instigated by an artist. Familiar ba kayo dito sa ginawa ni Medea Cruz? So, and to us, we look at that as a violation of our faith. No? So, medyo it became very controversial for a while, and then it fizzled out. And nobody really went out of their way to harm the artist. No? And again, I take that as an indication of how seriously we take our faith. Diba? So, in other words, one, probably in connection to what Dr. Asurin is presented to us, much of our pre-colonial worldview still persists. No? And perhaps the other thing is there is also some kind of regard to the colonial faith, that it is somehow a foreign imposition. No? And that in many ways there are difficulties in internalizing the Christianity as a whole, because mainly because it's a Western religion. It has its roots in Asia, but the formulators of the doctrines are all Europeans. All male Europeans, by the way, no? Walang babae. And the imagery, as you noted earlier, no? Just like look at these ones, no? They're all Europeans. Meron ba kayong Renaissance dyan? Yeah, this is Renaissance. No? If you take a look at this image, this is the Wedding of the Virgin by Raphael. Kung titingnan nyo, that is not, was this 1st century AD. What does it look like? It looks like 16th century Italy. Di ba? Tingnan nyo ng maigi. So I'm already segueing into Professor Ben's presentation. Kung makikita nyo doon sa painting, yung image, yung itsura ng mga tao, they look like 16th century Italians. Even the background, yung architectural background is 16th century Italian. Okay, so what does this mean? It means it's very liberating on the part of the Europeans because they start seeing that in their likeness. No? Kamukha nila yung Diyos, puti din. Yung damit, katulad nila. In other words, kung ngayon yung depiction na yun, nakamaong yung mga tao. Di ba? Because it's contemporary to them. At kamukha nila. Now that's the effect it created on us when we were presented with an image of a European God. No? And that's one of the reasons that accounts for yung inferiority complex natin, because we don't look anywhere like the gods we worship. Diba? So, anyway, in continuation, no? While on one hand, Professor Ben mentioned that art is not to control people. That is not always the case. Art has always been controlling people, even right now. No? I mean, your choice of clothes, yung preferences before the kind of cell phone that you buy, whatever you do is influenced by art. And, well, the big businesses are very familiar with that, yung power ng art. And it's no different during the early times. We are talking about empires. No? Empires need to have some kind of control. And the most effective ways by which people are controlled in an empire is to the submission of the same worldview. No? Magkakapareho kayo ng pagtingin sa mundo. Yung ganun. And the most effective instrument for that is the arts. No? I don't know if you can give me an image of a Baroque interior of a Baroque church. Now, you cited Baroque art or Baroque architecture is the most prevalent design in Philippine churches. No? But yung Philippine Baroque kasi is very different from European Baroque. This is the one in Europe. No? And you find that marami nito sa Germany. Bakit sa Germany? Because this is where the Reformation took place. No? And Baroque art is primarily counter-Reformation. You know what that means? Reformation, lumabas yung mga Protestante. Counter-Reformation, lalabanan mo yung effect ng Protestantism. And this art merges architecture, sculpture, and painting. Yung pillars, No? And then sa taas noon, may mga sculpture. Di ba? And then sa taas pa noon, may paintings. No? What's the point? No? It's all about appropriating the experience of being in heaven. But that's not so different from, it's not so different from the Byzantine churches, no, yung Eastern Church. Punong-puno ng paintings. They don't have sculpture. Yung Byzantine art is mainly paintings. No? In contrast, again, to Islamic art, there's nothing human that represents the divine. Ito punong-puno ng mga tao. The point of all this, no, it's about the main feature of Christianity kasi is what you would call the incarnation of God. Di ba? What makes Christianity different from other religions is the belief in the incarnation. God became human. Pero meron din yata iba na gano'n, di ba? Hinduism has that. In fact, there's nothing original in Christianity. No? Pero we're not trying to discredit Christianity. What makes it different, aside from being what does the incarnation in Christianity imply? Just to augment probably what Professor Ben missed, is that the God being incarnated as a human being through Jesus, no, is a statement, no, a statement of how humans should be humans. Paano tayo maging tao? By, interestingly enough, by imitating God. Okay, that should be very interesting. Now, I think among the things that should be stressed, no? Kasi if you read your Bible, what did Jesus do? Kasi Christians are supposed to be imitators or followers of Jesus. What did Jesus do? Among the things I feel that should be highlighted, no? It's not just simply parang you talk about love in abstraction, but love is acted out in terms of his opposition to the empire. No? You have to remember that Jesus was born during the Roman Empire. No? And when he said, di ba tinanong siya dati, should we pay our taxes? What did he say? Give to Caesar that belongs to Caesar. Does that mean paying taxes? No. It means let's do away with the Roman way of life. Diba? So that's very subversive. And the title King of Kings was only assigned to Caesar. And when the followers of Jesus, no, was starting to call him King of Kings, that is again a very political and subversive opposition. So Jesus started a movement against empires, no? Because empires represent abuse of power and authority, no? And empires represent greed. Diba? And Jesus also opposed hierarchies. Diba? So, how is this stated? When he washed the feet of his disciples. Diba? So, it's all about humility. That is what being human is all about. Okay. So, again, mali yung statement na yung mga Hudyo nagpapatay kay Jesus because Jesus is a Jew. You have to remember that Jesus is a Jew. No? And his crime is a political crime. When Jews killed fellow Jews, they stone them to death. They don't get crucified. People who are crucified are political offenders. No? So, finally, the idea of beauty. No? Marami na mga natira dito ay mga artists. Many of the students have left already. And this is what this should be among the things that we would put a lot of emphasis on, beauty. Yun talaga yung pinaka tungkulin ng artist. But what is beauty? Is it simply about, yeah, this is beautiful, no? Pero again, this is very, very European. That is their concept of beauty. It's very, what? Orderly in their concept of order. It's symmetrical. Symmetry is one of the features of European aesthetics. No? Kailangan may kaayusan sa tamang order. And you consider something beautiful if it is in their proper order. Maganda. Nasa tamang lugar. Di ba? So, but we are not Europeans. No? Ang ating mundo, before the buildings came, it's a typical tropical rainforest. No? Walang masyadong lines. Wala masyadong verticals and horizontal lines that would create a perfect symmetry. Di ba? Kaya hindi pa rin tayo nasanay hanggang ngayon. That's why part of our subconscious, no? Kaya tingnan nyo to, this is what you would call a hybridity of or a merge between the colonial European legacy and the aesthetics of the people. Yung tayo yan. Kung titignan nyo, walang focal point. No? Malaki lang yung ulo ng mama, kaya it has to be the focal point. Yung gano'n. Pero wala kang makikita parang barang-barang yan. No? Parang yung mga, we don't have a concept of zoning when we define urban spaces. So, this is pretty much what I have in mind in terms of reacting to the presentations. Now it's your turn, no? And we would like to hear from you. No? Maraming salamat po.